You know, growing up poor, you develop certain habits, and I want to say it's almost survival, bro. Like, you know, like when you grow up with lower income, like there's certain things that get ingrained in you, and no matter how much more money you start earning, they're so ingrained in you because it's like survival mode that they end up keeping you poor or with that mentality. So I kind of want to, for my brethren that also grew up in the same way, I kind of want to work these out a little bit or kind of like fight against that natural urge. I'm gonna give you a great example of this. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but for example, when you grow up poor, you truly believe you're gonna save your way into being rich or financially independent, right? Every time, and the thing is that you suck at it too, right? Like they'll be like, all right, you know you have to save 10% of your paycheck or 20%. So you'll start, you open a savings account, you start saving. By the time that thing's at like $100 or $1,000, you start running your mind. You're like, yo, wait a minute, I could buy myself a TV. I can buy those shoes, right? And before you know it, you never have savings, but you always believe that that's the way of financial independence. Here's what I didn't know. You should refocus that energy, right? Instead, I'm not saying saving is a bad thing. You should still save. But instead of focusing all your energy on saving and cutting back down, if you redirect your energy solely on how to make more money, saving becomes an afterthought. Right? You will save because of excess, if that makes sense, right? So a great example of this, like if I'm making $1,000 a month, right? That's, let's say, my salary. It's gonna be very hard to save and save those 10%, that $100, because I need to buy food, I need to pay rent, I need to pay, right? It's almost impossible to do so. That's why you always end up spending through your savings. But when you refocus all that energy into making more money, and let's say you go from 1,000 to 2,000, you could still live on 1,000, and now that excess becomes easy to save. Now magnify that. What happens at 100,000? What happens at 1,000,000? What happens at 10 million? Saving becomes an afterthought. 2, tax season becomes like Christmas season. Because again, right, when you're low income, anytime you have extra cash, you almost want to spend it immediately. Like Best Buy and Walmart knew exactly what they were doing once they started putting all their TVs on sale right around April, right around tax season, because they knew all these low-income families would be coming in and buying the new PlayStations, the new games, and this, that, and the other, because it's basically like Christmas season for us. When you're poor, you feed into instant gratification because you lack so much. Any little bit of joy, that new Xbox, that new TV brought so much joy that you would just jump into that instant gratification. So you end up buying liabilities instead of assets. We really didn't think about it logically. So I still have that ingrained in myself, right? The first time I made a little bit of money, like where it was decent, the first thing I bought is I went to go buy myself a Corvette. It was a 1 out of 100, 700 horsepower. I think at the time it cost me like $70K cash. I was like 19 at the time, right? It was like all the $70K I had in my bank account. And because I couldn't get a loan, I was like, F it, I'm paying cash for that thing, right? Because I was buying liabilities because that's all I knew. That's what I grew up in. And that's something you have to fight against with every day. Instead of jumping into that instant gratification, you have to think long-term, right? What asset can I buy that's actually gonna make me more money? So for me, it's almost always the business, right? My asset is the business. So when I have $1 million, I could go buy a stupid sports car or a nice RM, which, I mean, I'm not saying I won't, I probably will. But if I know that the business needs it more and I can 10x it in my business, it'll always go back into that asset. 3, you get used to living paycheck by paycheck. You get used to surviving. You get used to needing that next paycheck to be able to buy anything. The problem becomes emergencies. Anytime there's an emergency, anytime you need a little bit of extra cash, you're always at 0. And honestly, I wish there were sponsors like Dave back in my day, bro. Our sponsor, Dave, for today's video is a lifesaver because you can get access to instant cash up to $500. Whereas back in my day, you're screwed. Like, I mean, it was to the point that they would either cut off the water or we'd be living off of ramen noodles. Like, truly, for the next 2-3 days till that paycheck cleared. See, with Dave is a banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. And with Dave, there's no interest, no late fees, or credit check. That's more extra cash now to fill up your tank, pay off any extra bills, pay off any unexpected emergencies. You can finally now tackle all those expenses that were stressing you out. And you're not alone. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get that financial relief through extra cash. So if you're in a pinch, you need some extra help, I want you to download Dave. The link will be down below, and think of it as a helping hand from the future you. You can download Dave today by going to dave.com/TMF. That's dave.com/TMF. You you want to sign up to the Extra Cash account to get access to up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, you can go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees do apply, and all banking services are provided by Evolve, which is a member of the FDIC. Number 4, you love garbage food. Because you're low income, you fall in love with cheaper, faster food. For example, for us, it was Burger King, the worst one of all food chains. I don't know why. I was in love with Burger King, bro. Now, we weren't this bad, but you know, the more low income you become, the more you have what they call food insecurity, which means because you don't know when your next meal will be, anytime you do have food in front of you, you just down that thing. You go as fast as possible. And then to add on top of that, it's also a form of security, right? Like every time you eat, you almost feel satisfied in a world where you're always insecure about your finances. So it's like an escape of reality. That's why lower income people, there's such a problem with obesity within this demographic. You develop an unhealthy eating habit, which is unhealthy for your mind and unhealthy for your body, which takes you to number 5. You think very short term. Right? Because you're always living paycheck to paycheck, because you become so used to living with a bank account that's revolving at zero, avoiding bills, debt, and extra, like this is second nature to you, you're only thinking about paying that next bill. You're only thinking about making that extra $500 or extra $100 to get you to next week. The crappy part is that stress, it's almost like it blinds you. It doesn't allow you to think a month out, 5 months out, a year out. And this is when you know people have truly entered wealth. Like once you start getting a lot of money, your mind shifts, changes. You've probably heard me talk on podcasts. Like I'm thinking 20 years out. I'm thinking 50 years out at this point, right? But when you're at that point, it's so hard. And if I could go back and talk to little Jose, I would tell him, yo, start thinking longer term. Like, yes, you need to focus on your problems now. Of course, you can't just ignore them. But I need you to set aside a little brain capacity for future you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Try to look longer term out. This is what the rich people are doing, because this ultimately takes me to number 6, which is acceptance. This is the worst part of it all. It's a vicious cycle where when you grow up poor, you just end up accepting because of your skin tone color, because of where you were raised, because of where you were born. This is just how it is. This is normality. There's no way out for you, right? You just have to stay here. This is the norm for you. And being rich, that's for rich guys, right? So that acceptance is probably the worst one out of all of them, because once you defeat yourself mentally and say, that's it for me, that's when the growth stops. And yes, it will be increasingly harder for you. It'll be harder for you than anybody else probably, or other people that maybe didn't grow up poor. That's fine. You should be okay with that and understand that accepting it is basically accepting defeat. You should not give up.